She is not merely a name from the credits, but a signal fire in the night, one of the last bearers of a creed that treated acting not as display, but as devotion. In her hands, terror became testimony and tenderness a kind of armor. From a woman clawed out of a snowy Colorado nightmare to the unsinkable resolve on a doomed ship, she transmuted private ache into public strength. What the crowd called performances were, in truth, endurance rituals, less a bid for applause than a vow kept to craft. For more than 50 years she moved like heat and bastion at once, standing steady where others faltered, turning hard seasons, dismissal, sickness, heartbreak, to work that keeps breathing even when the room grows quiet. She is resilience incarnate, a figure hammered by weather, yet never warped by it, dignity set like stone. And now, at 77, that weather has deepened, the current heavy and personal, and we walk with her through memory's corridors to hear the storm's true pitch. Comment 77, or write Rip Kathy Bates to honor them. The loudest chapters were not the ones paved with spotlights. They were composed in a Memphis house where quiet had weight, where order pressed in from every wall and emotion learned to speak in undertones. Comfort, it turns out, can bruise as surely as want. Good manners can teach a child to fold her heart into smaller and smaller shapes until truth can barely breathe. She came into the world on June 28, 1948. The youngest of three, in a home that prized symmetry and schedule. Her father, Langdon Doyle Bates, built a life of measurements and margins, an engineer's gospel of precise lines and predictable outcomes. Her mother, Bertie Kathleen Talbot, tended the house and met the evening air with melodies, fingers producing notes that floated like soft rebellion against all that carefully arranged calm. Music tried to fill the corners. Some corners refused to be filled. The rooms were neat, the silence even neater. A child with bright eyes and sharper edges than the time demanded. She was told without the words that the world loved smooth surfaces and smiling sweetness. In a culture that kept tally of charm and symmetry, the mirror became not consolation but verdict. She wanted to be true more than she wanted to be lovely, though it would take years to say it that plainly. At school she was quick, the kind of mind that catches light, but the spotlight often found other faces. Somewhere beneath the daily courtesies, a quiet ember took root, a refusal to disappear. That ember would carry her farther than any early blessing could have. The stage became sanctuary. Under the boards, the geometry of a nose or the circumference of a waist mattered less than the exact pitch of a feeling. Theater offered a language for every unasked question. The audience leaned forward, not to judge her outline, but to hear what the soul sounded like. Offstage, a softer sadness traveled with her, a weather system without a map, while two voices offered their anchors. Her father's cool counsel toward sensibility. Her mother's voice, a pianissimo prayer to guard the heart without hardening it. Between those poles, she learned a delicate walk, the equilibrium between rule and rush, technique and truth. By 1965, she stepped onto the Southern Methodist University campus to study the thing that had already chosen her. She knew she would never belong to ordinary. 5 years later, in 1970, 22 years old and carrying more resolve than money, she set a suitcase by her door, watched Memphis yawn awake, and left before the city could persuade her to stay. She wasn't chasing a marquee. She was seeking room to breathe there wide enough for a voice that had outgrown smallness. She would later admit, in words that sounded like a smile on a scar, that the shadowed upbringing had taught her how to read for light. That old hush Memphis hush followed her to the city that never sleeps, willing to be not a trap this time but a tempo. The rhythm beneath everything she would say into the dark. Manhattan, all brick and breath and winter bite. The room she found was closer to a box than a home. 2 paces by 2, a window that consulted a wall of other windows, a radiator that did more coughing than warming. Heat came from a mug pressed to the chest, the fragile steam a small proof of life. The suitcase became a companion, the kind that never imposes, the kind that keeps secrets. Lines for auditions ran long down cold sidewalks awaiting game beside boys and girls who looked as though anointing had come easy. She waited too, then stepped into rooms where polite dismissal came with a smile sharpened like a blade. Not what we're after, they said, when they said anything at all. Many doors closed kindly, which sometimes hurts worse than slamming. Each no took a bite days that shaved identity down to a thinner version of itself. She learned to hold a grin, because tears cost energy she needed for the evening shift. The shoes let in rain. The hands went raw scrubbing plates in a diner on 9th Avenue. Decisions shrank to arithmetic, a bus fare or a meal, this ride or that hunger. Time thundered beneath the floorboards in the shape of a subway, hurrying to futures she couldn't board yet. She whispered speeches to a cracked mirror, reciting to a congregation of shadows. Acting was no longer a wish. It was oxygen. If she didn't speak truth through a role today, she would forget how to inhale tomorrow. A flicker 1971, her name threaded into Milos Forman's Taking Off. The currency was small. The proof was enormous. Seeing letters shaped into her identity in the credits told a young woman that she was real in this city, that specialized in erasing the unimportant. What followed looked like a decade of attrition to the outside eye, off-Broadway. Tiny rooms, scripts read, 2 rows of empty seats. Another audition, another dismissal, another night of sums whose remainders never equaled relief. But attrition hides alchemy. Every refusal turned into an unseen muscle. The city that first tried to swallow her learned, slowly, that she was too stubborn to digest. Another night, late 1970s, the power failed. The radiator surrendered. The street's glow sifted in like an apology. She wrapped herself in a coat and cradled her hands over a candle stub. A laugh, brittle and bright, cracked the dark too close to crying, too near the place where a person decides to stop. The suitcase by the door looked like an invitation to surrender. She rehearsed instead. By that stuttering light she murmured lines until the wall paled and dawn exhaled, and something quiet inside her answered yes to another day. By the time the early 1980s arrived, a tide slow, deliberate began to lift. A stage piece, with the charge of a live wire, put her in rooms where listening returned. The applause that met her then didn't detonate. It steadied an audience, realizing it had been holding its breath, and could now finally let it go, exhale. The relief after years of running uphill on empty lungs. New York, which had once devoured her dinners and her optimism, surrendered one rare gift, air. In that Sound Palms meeting over and over, Not very loud but impossibly sincere, she heard every door that had quietly closed. She also heard the hinge turning back the other way. There was always a ledger, the cost of climbing, the interest on hunger, the balance due after 1,000 small She learned to pay without bitterness. Workrooms and rehearsal halls became chapels. Scripts a liturgy to be spoken in full voice. The geometry of her face never changed, but the math of her presence did. Directors began to weigh what truth does to an audience when it arrives without makeup. The town kept trying to file her away as a type, and she refused the folder. Even in the rooms where budget lords and gatekeepers squinted at her. Something like danger flashed, the good kind. The kind that says the next scene is going to make you forget you're sitting. Through it all, the past did not evaporate. It rippled beneath the day, like groundwater, the childhood instruction to be sensible. The maternal plea to keep the heart intact. That Memphis quiet now harnessed and aimed. When the days broke her body's rhythm down to single beats. When she slept in pieces and woke with a list of surrenders to make, she still went. The gift had stopped asking for permission years ago. It demanded practice. And so she practiced. One winter afternoon she left an audition where she'd been politely told what she already knew, not available. Try elsewhere, and walked until her feet sent up sparks of pain. The sky hung low, the color of unmade decisions. She ate a late bowl of something warm and tasteless. Then went home to the candle and the cracked mirror, and a voice that still remembered how to speak in the dark. On nights like that, you can either count the defeats or learn the names of your own strengths. She chose the latter. One syllable at a time. Between the first phone calls that didn't come, and the first ones that did, she kept assembling herself. Body, technique, heart. The shows that paid rent were rarely the ones that proved her range. The ones that proved her range barely covered rent. But a craft forged in scarcity learns to be exact. It wastes nothing. By the time certain eyes, ones that had been skimming, finally stopped to see, she had sharpened what they found. Her voice had learned how to widen and narrow on command. Her face had learned to hold 3 contradictory emotions, and to release each at the chosen breath. Her body had found that particular stillness that makes an audience lean in because they sense a storm about to declare itself. From the back row to the aisle seat at the front, people began to feel it. The temperature shift when she stepped from wings to light. This was not glitter. It was gravity. The room rearranged itself around what she was doing. It is possible to build a career on charm. It is rarer to build one on consequence. She chose consequence. And the rooms adjusted their air accordingly. Some nights, she mapped her life like a subway grid. All the lines that never quite intersected. The transfers that cost extra time. The outages that stranded you, and the unexpected express that just once in a while carried you farther than your fare. When the grid overlapped with music her mother's old notes remembered without a piano, something opened in her chest. And she understood why all those years mattered. Each scarcity had trained her to hold abundance when it finally came, not with shaking hands, but with steady fingers and a dry eye. A role was coming, the one that would require the audience to hold its breath until it tasted metal. The one that would rewrite 1,000 lazy assumptions about beauty, power, and who gets to lead a frame. Before that script would change her, whether Other names crossed her horizon, other small proofs stacked like stones. There were rehearsals in rooms that smelled like dust and effort. There were alleyway pep talks offered to herself in a voice that was kinder than the world's. There were moments when she recognized the same hunger, mirrored in another actor's face, and felt less alone. There were projects that asked very little of her, and gigs that asked for blood. She gave what was required and saved nothing for later. She learned, too, the discipline of silence, of leaving a room without an explanation, of turning down a part that felt like a caricature of what the town wanted her to be, of waiting through the next lean month because saying yes would have cost her something she wasn't willing to spend. The city noticed that, even if it pretended not to. Integrity, even in an industry built on illusion, emits a sound of frequency serious people can hear. When the first wave of real attention rose, it didn't crown her as much as it recognized her. It named what had long been true, that she could walk a line between terror and tenderness and never slip. That she could make a character's worst moment a revelation rather than a spectacle. That she knew where to put the breath in a sentence so the next word arrived like a verdict. The applause, when it finally came from the right rooms, carried a second music beneath it, relief. Like the audience thanking itself for noticing what it might have missed. All of this childhood measured in hush and habit. The early vow to be true rather than decorative. The city's cold corridor of auditions. The candle that outlasted the night. The first credits that felt like proof of life. The steadying applause in a small theater that taught her lungs a new way to function. Brought her to the threshold of a door that would open into a room no one imagined for her. She would step through that door and become, in the cultural imagination, the avatar of a particular fear. She would hold an audience's gaze like a fist, and then open that fist to reveal she would be praised and penalized for the same miracle. But that is the next movement in a long symphony. For now, in this first movement, the melody belongs to survival, to patience, to a will that made choices when choices were few, in the quiet after a show. She sometimes listened to the radiator cough, to the city crackle, to herself breathe. She remembered her father's arithmetic, the clean logic. The promise that if you measured right and pressed the right bolts, everything would hold. She remembered her mother's music, the reminder that even the most disciplined pattern needs a phrase where feeling climbs. She gathered both measure and melody and laid them over her life like parchment. On that paper, she wrote the one sentence that had, in its way, written her, keep going. She would keep going. Into scripts that asked for teeth, and into scripts that asked for forgiveness. Into rooms that would change their mind about her, and into rooms that never would. She would arrive at a set that redefined the word breakthrough, and then at another, and another. She would give pieces of herself to characters the world will remember long after we are all gone. She would pay for those gifts with hours and cells and private tears. She would stand upright anyway. There is a moment, somewhere between last curtain and first light, when the city stands still enough for memory to speak. In that moment, the child who learned to be precise, and the young woman who learned to be stubborn meet the artist who learned to be necessary. They look at one another without apology. They agree on the cost and on the worth. They turn, together, toward the door that is opening now. The door opens, not with trumpet fanfare, but with a draft of air. That inward tug when the world briefly remembers to pay attention. Before the wide beam of a breakthrough finds her. A smaller light had already called her name in, early camera turning its lens toward a young actress who could make the smallest gesture carry the weight of a confession. A music of chance placed her in front of Milo's foreman, who gave her space in a story and, with it, a first credential that felt like a passport stamped at the border of an imagined life. The paycheck was thin. The knowledge was thick. She learned how a set breathes, how marks on the floor are a kind of dance step, how the silence before action can feel like the inside of a bell about to ring. It was not a rival, but it was a direction. She kept the direction. Right ripped Milo's foreman to honor them. What the town called plain she made into instrument. And then came the day, a director looked past every narrow word used to shrink her and saw the exact voltage of truth she carried. He had seen her on a stage, where distance strips glamour down to its bones and leaves only whether the soul is speaking. Rob Reiner placed a script in her hands that pulsed like a live wire. It wasn't simply a part. It was a test. Could she take terror and aim it without wasting a breath? Could she let tenderness and horror coexist in a way that made an audience lean forward for mercy and then refuse to look away when mercy did not arrive? She read, and the words seemed to already know her mouth. On set she walked the hard line between stillness and eruption, between devotion and danger, and the camera unforgiving fell in love with the force that could hold both. When the film opened, its small number of dollars multiplied into many, and the town that had learned her name only as an aside now spoke it like a verdict. Awards gathered at her feet, but they did not define her so much as they confirmed a thing she and a handful of watchers had always suspected, that she could hold a frame on her own, that she could make fear a kind of prayer, that she could take a character offered as a monster and reveal the raw human center beating beneath the nightmare. The shiny statue she raised that winter evening felt like a message lasered by years of doubt. Not pretty enough. Watch power. Not leading lady. Watch gravity. But gifts have edges. The role that crowned her tried to cage her. The town, giddy to celebrate the storm she summoned, wanted to rehire the weather over and over. She had to teach them that she was not climate, she was craft. Right rip Rob Reiner to honor them. The following decade became heavy with calendars. Long days bent into longer nights, the set call sheets turning into thin pillows under her cheek on car rides between scenes. She signed on 2 stories that found her steel and her softness and asked both to speak at once. One tale, cooked in southern kitchens and friendship, gave audiences permission to recognize themselves, to let strength look like compassion, to understand that a woman's anger can be a form of love. Crowds showed up, not for fireworks, but for food nourishment. The steady seasoning of truth and the box office rewarded a kind of generosity that had nothing to do with spectacle. She carried it all praise. Pressure, the invisible bill that success hands the body. Pain threaded through her hands and spine. There were mornings when the voice cracked, nights when the bones argued. She did not walk away. She drank water, swallowed the ache, circled a line until it sang, and then stepped under the light again, as if the world needed that scene to balance itself. For most people, The distance between counting coins for coffee and signing contracts with 7 figures is a fantasy. For her, it was a road paid for with hours the body will not get back. Money rose. Meaning did, too, though it came with a kind of solitude few people talk about in public. She reached the peak and learned a quiet lesson. Some summits are windy. The next chapters proved what the first ones promised, that she could cut to the truth regardless of the costume. In one political parable, she peeled pretense away from power. In another, she made vulnerability visible without turning it into begging. Audiences recognized the rare thing: she could make a character's most uncomfortable moment the most human. And yet the ledger never stopped balancing itself. A few projects, the ones with hope in their hearts and small coffers to keep them alive, hoped to be seen, and the public walked past. The town, always quick to convert yesterday's praise into today's doubt, began its slow arithmetic. A woman who had outrun the rules was now being measured by them again. It is one of the industry's cruelties, how fast a risk label can be glued back onto a name that earned the right to be called inevitable. She answered by widening the borders of her work. Behind the camera, she arranged stories with a conductor's ear, standing before crews where some still carried a reflexive suspicion of a woman in command. She did not argue with the reflex. She outlasted it. If a room questioned her authority, she let the shot answer. If the day grew long, she made it a little longer, staying after hours to refine an angle, to shave a line until it lay flush against the moment. The janitor's keys at midnight. The monitor's glow on a face grown older in the best way, etched not by defeat but by devotion. And then the hush arrives, the space between applause and memory. The phone cooled. Scripts thinned. The one Seeger calls became careful or simply never came. She did not disappear. The town's attention did what attention always does. But greatness knows how to bide its time. When she walked onto a particular set in 2013, the air shifted. The series was an anthology of American nightmares and secrets. She would become a figure from a dark historical corner. And she would do it with such ferocity and precision that people who had not spoken her name in years spoke it again with the softness reserved for a revered elder. The award that followed was less a resurrection than an acknowledgement that she had never gone anywhere. She had simply been working where noise could not find her. They gave her a new moniker, Iron Soul. She wore it the way she wears everything, as if labels are temporary and work is the only thing that lasts. What she said about triumph carries more ballast now. The trophies bruise with dust. The work abides. She knew, perhaps more clear than ever, that success is not rest. It is responsibility. It asks you to stand back up when the body would rather fold, to show beginners that the path is real, to show veterans that the fire can live longer than the fashion. She kept stepping forward, at an age when the machine pretends women stop existing, and let the scenes do the arguing. Comment 77, or write Rip Kathy. Bates to honor them. For a while the industry tried to define her by the character that frightened it most. She let it try. Then she kept choosing roles that demanded different muscles. Sometimes small but exact, sometimes larger than life but anchored to the real. The audience learned to trust that even if a logline sounded familiar, the heartbeat underneath would not be. There are careers built on surprise the twist in the last 5 minutes. Hers is built on inevitability, the sense that the deepest version of a moment is on its way because she is in it. On one set, during a 16-hour day, she felt the breath leave her in a way that wasn't dramatic, but was definitive. Fatigue laying a hand across the shoulders and asking a quiet question, "Can we keep doing this?" She nodded, amused at her own stubbornness, and did the scene again. Not out of martyrdom, out of covenant. She remembered the girl with a candle and a cracked mirror, and knew that every day now, even the hardest, was the answer she had promised to provide back then. If you stand close to the work, you can hear the echo of earlier rooms. In the rhythm of how she waits a beat before the next line, you can hear a father's insistence on measure. In the way she lets a scene soften precisely where others would harden it, you can hear a mother's melody folding in from the edges. When a camera loves someone, it's often because the face tells the truth faster than the words do. She has the rarest thing the lens can record: a moral temperature. You look and you know this person's feeling means something, and the moment will keep meaning something after the cut. The years that followed her, return to the cultural limbic system, were not a parade. They were a pilgrimage. She moved through the work like someone who had understood that influence is not volume. It is accumulation. You keep placing one true scene beside another until the wall you've built can hold other people up. And that wall grew. There are costs that biographies will not list because they are not tidy. Gathered at night when the instrument aches. Paid at morning when the voice warms slowly. Measured in what the body sets aside so the soul can finish speaking. She paid them. Not to keep pace with anyone else. Not to maintain a chart position. To honor the thing that had asked everything of her. The chance to speak the unspeakable for people who could not get a hearing. That's what audiences felt in the theater aisle. And later in their living rooms, the sense that someone had gone into the difficult room on their behalf and returned, with a piece of language that made breathing easier. Through the cycle, first forgettings, then rediscoveries, she learned a quiet grace, to let the external appetite feast or fast, and to keep her own table set. She cultivated disciplines that outlived fads, serious preparation, generous listening, the courage to do nothing in a moment so that the nothingness could glow. These are not glamorous virtues. They are permanent ones. If you've ever watched her absorb a blow news that breaks a character in two, and then watched the exact second the eyes decide to continue, you've seen the culmination of those early Memphis lessons. Composure not as denial but as determination. Tenderness not as weakness but as a weapon carved from patience. She carries that into every set and every room that needs permission to be human again. Younger artists approach her with the kind of awe that borders on fear. She answers with jokes and a steadiness that says, in essence, this work is serious, and so are you, proceed. She has said in her way that the shine wears off, that the emblems of success begin to resemble each other once you've lived with them long enough. She keeps one favoring truth, the presence in the moment that makes the scene necessary. This is what lasts. The audience may forget every headline. It remembers the exact feeling of the breath it was holding when she looked left, or when she chose not to smile, or when a single syllable cracked cleanly enough to let the light in. And still, the industry's clock keeps turning. Trends burn bright, then cold. New faces arrive with the heat of meteors. She neither competes with nor resents that weather. She knows her climate. She keeps planting. A show built from American nightmares needed an anchor. She hammered a stake. A project somewhere else needed the kindness that arrives dressed as ferocity. She provided it. The town likes to label certain artists over when they are, in truth, entering the most honest part of their work. She entered it, head up. When the crew on that anthology set applauded between takes, not the staged applause of publicity, but the involuntary recognition of having witnessed an exact thing, she did something so simple it looks like prayer. She nodded once, as if to say, yes. This is what I came for. Comment 77, or write Rip Kathy Bates to honor them. All of it the early film chants that taught her to belong on a set. The director who refused to see anything but the unvarnished power she offered. The decade of feverish, beautiful labor. The period when the town pretended to look away, and the moment it had to look back, braids into a single cord strong enough to hold the rest of this story. In the next measures, there will be love and its breaking, illness and its resistance, grief and the way it teaches endurance to sing. But this measure belongs to the ascension and the cost, to the way a person builds a house out of yes after yes, and then learns how to live in it when the neighbors go quiet. She steps off another set under a sky the color of old film stock, breathes in air that used to be a stranger, and allows herself one small private smile. Not triumph, not relief, recognition that what she dreamed in a room no larger than a sigh turned out to be real enough to touch, and hard enough to carry, and worth every price written in the ledger kept by the body.